All right, we are recording. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to Getting Your Message Out, tips on marketing and promoting your business using press releases, local and national media outlets, and social media. The Cypress Chamber of Commerce is very pleased to host another in a series of free webinars to share useful information for your business. These programs would not be possible without the help of our sponsors and donors. Our presenting sponsor is Kinetic Mortgage of Cypress. They just need one credit report to find you the best mortgage rates. Additional sponsors include the OC Breeze and Creative Media Recording. And if you'd like the material you get today, you can click on the donate link at the Cypress Chamber homepage and contribute a little or a lot to help us offset the costs of these programs. So let's get this started. My name is Tim Keenan. I'm a Cypress Chamber of Commerce board member, and I own Creative Media Recording, a media recording studio serving ad agencies and production companies. I'll be moderating this panel, as well as sharing some of my own successes with using press releases. We're joined by an experienced panel of professionals, including Shelley Henderson, editor of OC-Breeze.com, a popular and heavily used West Orange County news and information website and online publication. Shelley's also the host of the Sidecar podcast, part of OC Breeze, and she has an extensive background as a writer and editor. She's currently the chairperson of the Cypress Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors. We're also joined by Tom Jordan, senior product manager, senior project marketing writer with a major OC-based electronics manufacturer. Tom's also an award-winning audiobook narrator and voiceover artist in his spare time. We also welcome Manny Pacheco, award-winning author of the Forgotten Hollywood book series, communications professor, and newscaster and traffic reporter for KNX Radio here in Southern California. Manny has an extensive background as a radio host and DJ. We're also joined by Joy Ellis, digital outreach specialist with the Orange County-based communications and government relations company, Kurt Pringle and Associates. She's worked for the Walt Disney Company and other marketing companies and managed the last live Taste of Huntington Beach before COVID. So here's our format for today. We're going to hear from all our presenters first, and then we're going to go back and have a roundtable to address some of your questions. There's a Q&A button down at the bottom, so I would hope that in there is where I'm hoping that you will use the, as questions come up, just type it in there and we'll have some questions stacked up. And we're going to start off with Shelley Henderson. Shelley, editor of the OC Breeze, has written press releases, but seen a lot of press releases in her day because her publication has thousands and thousands of viewers every day. So Shelley, I'm going to let you kick us off. Yes, you need.
Don't worry, I'm a professional. Thank you, Tim. News releases, we've got news releases. I go through about 2,000 a day. So if you want to get something published at Orange County Breeze, and I do want to publish your news release, please don't just put news release in the subject line of your submitted email. That is one of the quickest ways to get your email to me deleted, because I have 2,000 that I have to get through in every single day. So the very first thing that I want to tell all of our listeners is to please put something meaningful in the subject line of your news release email. Do not just put news release or press release. It's okay to put news release or press release, but don't stop there. Give the organization that is releasing the news and a tiny bit about what the news is about. Also, make the news release long enough, but don't go on for pages and pages and pages and pages, because we don't want to lose the attention of our readers. Also, the rule used to be for newspapers and such that you should pitch the writing level to about 8th grade reading level. I would say that it depends on the topic, but long, complicated sentences with long, complicated words are definite way to put readers to sleep or get them to click away. You want them to read all about your fantastic news, and you certainly don't want to put your poor, long-suffering editor to sleep. So if I get a news release that is not vital news for our readership, and it is long and complicated and has an elevated vocabulary, congratulations on your college education, but it's not going to get published. It needs to be geared towards the average reader, and polysyllabic vocabulary with Latinate roots is not going to do it. For Orange County Breeze, we are based in Northwest Orange County. We want to have hooks in stories that we publish for our area. Our core coverage area is Cypress, Los Alamitos, Rossmore, and Seal Beach. Our extended coverage area includes the communities that touch that core coverage area. I should include the 2 military installations as well, though it's been harder to get information out of them since the COVID lockdown. So if you are outside that area, you can send in a news release, but it's unlikely, it's not impossible, but it is unlikely that it will get published either as a calendar item or as a news item at Orange County Breeze, because that is simply outside our coverage area. So one of the things that you want to do to save yourself some time is to make sure that the targets of your news release are interested in what you want to have them publish, or it'll just get deleted. Also, one of the things that is disheartening for an editor who is going through 2,000 emails a day is to get an email that has bunches and bunches and bunches and bunches of CCs. Oh, good. A news release that is going to every single news site in Southern California and on up to Sacramento that this person could find a contact for. Politeness suggests that you want to do the BCC route, the blind copy, so that the editor can continue to delude herself that she is the sole person that is getting this news release. As I already covered the make it long enough but not too long, photos. I get lots and lots of photos. When I first started, photos were small because that's what was available for people to send in. They had digital cameras that took small photos and not very good photos. Nobody has an excuse these days not to send in good sized digital photos. Even, I'll say that, even your phone takes decent sized photos. Now it's the operator that has to actually look at the photo and take a decent picture. Don't try to do fancy editing of the photo, just send it in. It'll probably get reformatted to fit our format, just so you know. But do try to look at the photo before you take it, or when you're deciding which version of a photo to send in, so that you don't send in a photo with the top of people's heads cut off, or their feet cut off, or half of someone who is important to the story. Look at what you're taking a photo of before you push the button to take the photo. What else? Always identify any people in the photo. Oh my gracious me. We get so many photos that are a bunch of people stood up next to each other, smiling for the camera, and we have no idea who they are. So we end up with captions along the lines of members of this local community group are gathered together to celebrate the community group's 57th anniversary. It would be nice to identify the people involved. Also, smaller groups are better than larger groups. If you have 50 people that you want to take a picture of, that's not going to come out well. Cut it down to the executive committee or to the particular family that is being celebrated or the group that's being celebrated. Um, what else? Uh, you, the big thing is always think of yourself as trying to convince me to not hit the delete button, because that is my first reaction. If I get stymied by something and I don't recognize the group or I don't recognize the event, I will hit delete, because there are literally hundreds more in addition to your email that I have to get to every morning. So you want to be on your best behavior when you're sending in an email. And if you're not sure that someplace would be interested in your particular topic, send an inquiry ahead of time. Would you be interested in this? Oh my gosh, yes. Or no, that's outside our coverage area. Or I don't think so. We don't cover strip clubs. Or an inquiry like that will save you a lot of aggravation, and it will save editors like me a lot of time when we're going through our emails.
Before you finish, Shelley,
Yes.
I could have sort of a global question. So then you don't really spend a lot of time editing necessarily in your thing, and you don't necessarily, you don't crop pictures or any of that. It's for you, it's the simplest, easiest thing. If you can drop in their press release and you can drop in their picture, that's what you're doing.
If it's possible, but I am, I do edit, for instance, for the local groups. I try to clean up spelling errors and punctuation errors and day of the week incompatibilities, but I shouldn't have to. I really shouldn't have to. On the photos, please send the unedited photos, because I do reformat those so that they fit our format.
And so if you give them lots of flexibility, then it gives you flexibility to do what you want to do with the photo.
Correct. And if you have an event coming up that you want coverage for, let us know ahead of time. And if we have staff available and it's likely to be of interest to our readers, we could send somebody out, especially now that things are opening up again. Yay. It's been really hard. We have one publication, a dining arts and entertainment guide, that has been very hard to keep published over the last year because there were so few events happening.
What's your deadline for like an event thing? How many days ahead of time do you have to have that before the event guide?
Before the event guide, we should have it like the week before the end of the month.
And
That
what
gives
about for the publication? What's your deadline
for
if
the online publication, oc-breeze.com.
Yes.
We'll publish it as soon as we can process it.
But normally that would take you a day or two to process.
Right. And unless it is embargoed, and if that means that we should not publish it until a given date. And if you send in an embargoed news release, you have to have embargoed in big, ugly, bold letters at the top so that we can actually see it and notice it, and not publish your super secret thing until the release date.
Again, that gets complicated. I mean, so now we're asking you to do logistical stuff. Okay, I'm going to move on to our next speaker so we get some time in for the questions and answers at the end, if that's okay.
Thank you, Tim.
You bet. Tom Jordan, who writes a lot of press releases and knows what they should look like and probably follows the rules since you've done so many for so many years. Share your background a little bit and what.
Sure. Yeah, I've been a professional writer, specifically a marketing copywriter, for about 20 years now. I've worked at Extron down in Anaheim for the past 15 years, where I've been the senior writer there in the product marketing department. And I also seem to be getting some bleeding of my background in here. So we do tons of press releases. They are not necessarily the most exciting part of my job, but we do write a lot of them. 90% of them, I would say, are product launch related. The other 10 are event related or award related or something like that. So So I can get my lighting just a little bit better. I had all the time in the world to mess with my lighting, and I decided to do it now. You know, press releases are typically third person. And by the way, you know, Shelley, jump in if I'm saying anything that's incorrect here. I know that the way that we write them, they're third person. We do write other things that are a little bit less formal in second person. We don't jump into first. But press
According
releases
to
are,
the audience.
yes, exactly. So we do third person press releases at Extron. We typically have the company name in the headline because you want people to know what's going on with who it is, because if it is third person, it's not we've done this, it's Extron has done this, or Extron is launching this particular product. First paragraph, you know, without getting into too much detail, but just overall, it should, what you really need to say should pretty much be kept, it should pretty much be said in the first paragraph. The reason is that depending on the publication that it goes into, sometimes they don't publish anything after the first paragraph. So, you know, they may drop the second and third paragraph. We typically do 3 paragraphs, where the first one is pretty much everything that you want to be able to say about it in, you know, X number of words. The second paragraph goes in, is a quote, typically from VP of sales or the like, depending on the region and what the product or service is being touted. And then the third paragraph is anything else that we want to say about the product that we didn't say in the first paragraph, that might be able to be of interest to people.
I want to
So that's
jump in here
yeah,
real
yeah.
quick and say that for local news, you want to include a background or contact information at the bottom of the story also. So for instance, like the Kiwanis, if you want more information about the Kiwanis Club of Cyprus, go to their website and give the link.
Yes. Let me share. Let me do this real quick. I'll share. Here we go. All right, you guys should be able to see this. I won't move it around too much. So here's one of the product line that I primarily work in, which is the control products. And there's, I think this is what Shelley's talking about. This is kind of, you know, our blurb about the company, and that's included in every one of the ones that we do. The first paragraph, again, we say what it's about. Second paragraph is the quote. In this case, our VP of worldwide sales, but it can be somebody else. So usually it's this person, since they're there. The quote, by the way, can be, I've worked for companies where the writer in charge of writing the press release writes the quote and just gets it approved. I've worked for companies where the person insists on having quotes come from the actual person that's doing it. As long as it's approved and it's something they would say, it's perfectly fine. In the case with Extron, the person that's in charge there does write their own quotes. It goes down at the third paragraph, kind of wraps up what you may not have touched upon, some other information. Again, depending on the publication, you may only have this much published along with the photo. That's why it's important to get your message out, which you really want to say in the first paragraph. That doesn't mean it has to be long, of course, but there's that. Let me take a look at my notes over here real quick, make sure I'm covering everything. As Shelley mentioned, don't have CCs in the email. BCC, not only is BCC a more polite way when you're sending in a press release to some news organization or wherever you want to get it published, but it also keeps other people's emails from being broadcasted to everybody else. So that's more of a security issue than anything else. So that's always good. There's other ways of getting your message out, you know, other than press releases. And of course, social media is something that Joy will talk about. But you can have a mailing list set up so that you've got certain customers that you want to reach out to, and with that you'll have something that we do something called news flashes, and we send those out to specific groups of customers, where that's a little bit less formal than a press release. We typically do second person, so we do a lot more "we are pleased" instead of "Extron is pleased." We do "ours" in there and things like that instead of just instead of Extron as a third person. So it brings a little bit more personal touch to it. Those typically have the same types of information in there as the press release, but again, the writing's a little bit more relaxed. So there's that. You know, there's a lot of different ways of getting your message out. We've experimented with podcasting. We do we do a lot of intro videos and the scripts for those I'm in charge of writing, and I do the voiceovers for all the intro videos as well. So there's a ton of ways of doing things when it comes to this, but press releases in general, pretty straightforward things. They can be more fun, I guess, if you want it to be, and you know, you can work on relaxing the language a little bit, but again, the third person point of view seems to be the staple of these. I'm happy to answer any questions too if you want to throw anything up at the Q&A box, because I don't know what else to say about press releases as far as the way we do them, but I'll be happy to answer questions because I've worked for several companies that have done press releases, and they all seem to be pretty cookie cutter as far as it goes. But individual questions I'll be happy to entertain. So let me know what you need.
We'll get to the questions at the end, I think, too. So have you done any kind of press releases? And I know you've done marketing and promotion for your own like audiobook projects.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You do a book, you want to help the book sell because, that helps everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So have you done formal press releases that you've sent out to different folks?
Yeah, ironically, no, I haven't. And it seems like I probably should, being the writer that writes them all day long anyway. I should probably do some press releases like that. No, my marketing for the audiobook stuff and the voiceover stuff is kind of segregated into different types of a little bit more personal things, but certainly nothing wrong with that idea.
How did you learn? Where did you start as far as writing press releases? Because that wasn't you didn't come out of your background.
Right, exactly. So, being a writer from way back, I knew that I wanted to make money at it. I just didn't know how. So I started with technical writing, and then I quickly jumped over into marketing writing because technical writing was, although I can do it, it's just a little bit dry for me. However, that being said, working for a professional AV company, one of the largest in the world, we've a lot of what we write is technical in nature. So, Shelley, I was listening carefully to what she said about the language and choosing things to kind of, gear towards your audience. Our audience tends to be pretty technically minded. So when it comes to writing these, listen to what Shelley says as far as gearing towards your audience, because quite frankly, for the past 15 years, I'm so used to writing to AV professionals and integrators and consultants within the field of audiovisual equipment that I tend to write pretty technical because that's what they consume. But if it's something that's a little bit, obviously just write to your audience is the long and the short of that.
And I know Joy has some experience promoting events, because that's another thing. It's like if you were going to write something about an event, well, then obviously it's going to be a little peppier and more exciting and hypey. Whereas, when you're talking about technical stuff, it's more informational. Hey, this is a great whiz bang piece of equipment, and here's what the whiz bang features are, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not too much, fireworks.
Right. But I'm also in charge of writing the social media posts for LinkedIn and Twitter in particular. And so I'm interested to hear what Joy has to say, because we're always up to getting tips on those. And we've got in-house social media people that are dedicated just to writing those and editing them and things like that. But yeah, it's a whole new world out there, and writing those takes a special set of skills too. So
cool.
Yeah.
All right. Our next presenter is Manny Pacheco. Manny, share with us a little bit of your background and kind of you promote many different things. So you have to wear a bunch of different hats.
I wear a lot of different hats, and it just comes down to branding. When you work for a company such as I work for KNX, and my brand is the radio that it's all news and traffic. So that's a very specific brand, and it's targeted that way. And of course, as a professor, we always concerned about making sure we have enough enrollment, and in our different class settings, we want to make sure we get the words out that we need to get students from the areas to be involved with the schools. But as my own personal brand, as an author and a Hollywood historian, I get to look back at what history was like for Hollywood and the vintage United States, and using the Forgotten Hollywood brand is a way to actually target me as a person without giving the inference that I'm bragging. And press releases obviously are the most ideal way of being able to use Forgotten Hollywood as the brand and to target that. And that gives me the chance to get that word out. Now, in the spirit of that, I thought I would begin by actually talking about the history of press releases and where they come from, because that's just what I do. And so press releases were born out of the yellow journalism age of William Randolph Hearst. Many times he would post things in his newspapers that were blatantly exaggerated and in many cases even lies. And press releases were actually developed as a way to mitigate those falsehoods, those lies. And so press releases date back to the early 1900s and came about as a way to mitigate that bad publicity. Before advances in communications allowed us to access both sides of a story, it was common for newspapers to print stories about an accident or harmful event before having all the facts. Companies began sending statements to the newspapers as a way to set the record straight. It was sort of a preemptive strike. In the old days, press releases were specifically formatted and provided reporters with the only most important information that the company felt they needed. Because releases were sent mostly to reporters with experience in a specific industry, they often used technical jargon or industry-specific technology without any explanation or background information. But today, press releases are widely sent to mainstream media. Journalists' press releases are available online for customers to find through a web search or read on a company's blog. Many bloggers and online publishers access these to read for story ideas close to their niche. So press releases today actually target in the same way a blog or podcast may target readership and an audience. It's another way to brand your company, your product, and maybe in most cases, you. So when a press release is posted online, it's immediately available and has all the capabilities of a regular web page, including the use of hyperlinks. Link key phrases and calls to action related to your website. This will allow your customer to place an order or sign up if interested, and it's also excellent for search engines. These links to your website will appear everywhere the press release is published. Those incoming links will help you rank on search engines for the phrases that are hyperlinked. Obviously, content's always the thing. It was the thing in 1903. It's the thing in 2021. Content, it will always be king, and you need to be continually creating relevant, timely content that journalists and customers are engaged to stay connected. The more consistent you are with posting content, the more likely your brand will rank higher in a search. Photos, we went over photos with Shelley, and let me just add to that by saying photos can make an ordinary press release stand out from the crowd. If you're advertising a new product, make sure to include a product photograph. If you're hiring a new employee, make sure their photograph is also included. If it's you, send away and make sure you're photogenic. Audio, consider now adding audio clips of interviews, podcast excerpts, quotes featured in the press release. Audacity is a free audio recording service that can help you easily download to your computer for recording and editing press coverage. So if you have that at your access, imagine the kinds of really great press releases you can really develop. Now, a complement to audio is obviously video. Videos can add an extra dimension never before available in press releases. Videos of product reviews, demonstrations, interviews are all excellent additions to a press release. And of course, it all comes down to what I've been hinting at through the entire presentation, SEO. A well-written press release utilizing SEO search algorithms allows search engines to find, match, index, and rank your press release. Search algorithms are looking for well-written content that naturally incorporates keywords and links. High quality links in your press releases, boy, that's an important thing. Proper keyword usage, quality links, consistent distribution. Well, that allows you to develop authority in the industry. And if you have authority, then you become an influencer. Google and other search engines are looking for and ranking content from authoritative sources, so post a variety of content to establish your brand's expertise. And of course, I think Joy will tackle this more, but social media facilities, adding buttons to post the items to popular social bookmarking sites like Dig, Delicious, Technorati can help publicize the press release as people use social media to bookmark or share your release. It will be exposed to your friends and your followers. helping to spread the word. Now, I want to share something too, but I'm not as adept with sharing screens, so we're going to try to make this work, and there it is. I came up with this this graph that I thought was kind of important. Social media activity on social networks. Now, this involves the idea if you're sending out a news-related press release, here's the percentage of relevance for each of Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, and Twitter. As you can see with news, Twitter is the thing. If you really have a news related, and in my case, you know, an event, something that will generate news, Twitter's the way to go. If you're sharing photos primarily, obviously Instagram is top, but you know, you're not doing bad if you're also involved with Facebook and Snapchat. If you're watching videos, it's pretty much across the board, pretty popular, except for Twitter. And if you're sharing content with everyone, Facebook is the thing. I mean, if you're, that's why Facebook is so friend friendly. And if you're trying to network with people, just simply trying to be consistent in your content, it really doesn't pay to stay on social media for any long period of time. So you need to diversify. As you can see in Instagram, 23%, Facebook, 33%, very low numbers. But if you're sharing content one-on-one, you know, to an individual, and you take the time to send to one individual, very time consuming, but it might be worth your while if you're using Snapchat or Facebook. I hope you guys got to see that. I'm not sure if that worked for you, but did you get to see that? Was that good? Okay, good. And on let me leave you with on a personal note. This past December, I was in a play. It was a radio play. I got to play Clarence the Angel in It's a Wonderful Life. And it was a great thank you, Shelley. It was a great opportunity to utilize a lot of the ideas with regards to national press release. Of course, I was very traditional. I appeared on television on PBS to do a little chat about my Forgotten Hollywood brand and the fact that I was also on a national radio play that appeared on Broadway.com. But I also used radio resources as well. Some advertising, that kind of thing. But we were also able to do a lot of Zoom interviews, the same way that SAG-AFTRA are using Zoom interviews of the actors of movies that are being nominated for Academy Awards. We used to be able to see these people live. Now we see them on Zoom, and it's a great way to get little snippets that you can use for press releases. And then finally, and the pièce de résistance was the, because of my Hollywood history background, I was able to get one of the original cast members from the movie who's still alive. The movie came out in 1946. The young lady who played Zuzu, she was just a child in the movie. She's now in her 80s. I was able to arrange a Zoom interview with the director of our production and Carolyn Grimes, who played Zuzu in It's a Wonderful Life. So these multi-platform ways of presenting press releases in a newfangled way, we're able to generate tens of thousands of listeners for our program. And that's, and remember, I'm just one person. Can you imagine if the entire cast worked in that fashion, how successful they could be? And so I hope this has been a short but fun way of looking at the history of the press release and what we can do today in 2021.
Because your Hollywood history book series is kind of a niche, and you know Tom's industry is a niche also, and it's a niche in that it's AV, you know, video related equipment. You know, one of the questions is, and Tom doesn't do this necessarily, doesn't place the press releases, but and great ideas on all that, especially this past year, Zoom has begun such a thing, and as you know, finding Zoom, you know, people are more accepting of Zoom today after a year of Zooming than they were a year ago, or a year and a half ago. People are like, oh, really? No, I'd rather have you go to a satellite uplink facility or something that's way too expensive to do. But now they'll accept Zoom because, you know, it's there and everybody's using it. Where do you find, how do you decide who's going to accept, you know, like, okay, you got an NPR interview. How did you find a resource that got you to that NPR station and that reporter, you know?
Well, actually, it was very, very easy because I have plenty of related friends that I network with on Facebook and on LinkedIn. And so what I do is I always look at my list and I say, okay, I'm about to do something related to radio with It's a Wonderful Life and Hollywood It's a Wonderful Life. And I'm able to combine the two with my audiences for both that I network with on Facebook or on LinkedIn. And then I can target my individual releases or my information to those individuals, and they're the ones that are most likely to respond. It's kind of the old story that if you wanted to talk about, let's say, rock and roll records, and you did an article in the LA Times, well, you might get a much bigger audience, but you also might get a much bigger audience that's not interested in you. But if you target it to, let's say, Billboard magazine or Radio and Records magazine, or any Rolling Stone magazine, then you're going to get a more an audience that's more captivated with your message. So it's all about targeting your brand, but two things: you have to know your brand, and you have to know your audience. If you don't know one or the other, then you're actually spitting in the wind. So.
Yeah. And I see Tom and Shelley have answered that question in the written Q&A thing. So that's very nice. Thank you. That's some good tips there as well. Okay. Thank you, Manny. Appreciate that. We're going to move on to Joy Ellis from Kurt Pringle and Associates. Joy, give us a little bit of your background, and then you can just jump right in.
Yeah, of course. Let me just hop over to my screen. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay, awesome.
Yes.
So like he said, my name's Joy. I'm from Kurt Pringle and Associates, and my position here is I am their digital outreach specialist. So I specialize in Facebook advertising, Instagram advertising, and social media content creating. I'm a graphic designer, as well as just strategy for social media. So I loved Manny. You had some great stuff to say about the evolution of just the press release, and how I have a lot to say about that as well, and how kind of social media comes into play with it. And it's very interesting because we're living in a very interesting time of development for digital. And even since I've started my career a few short years ago, it's changed a lot, even in the last of my career. So there's a lot to learn, and it's always evolving. It's constantly changing, which is super exciting. But you got to kind of keep your nose to the news to make sure you're staying in it and keeping updated. But without further ado, so the benefits of communicating through social media. There's some obvious benefits of communicating through social media. First of all, it's free. You really it's free. I mean, why not? Why not create these platforms and utilize them in business manners? But also you could utilize them through a budget. If you put money in it, for Facebook, you can put in $3-4 a day in order to optimize content and get them in front of the people that you want to see them. And that's through, you can do a full ad campaign through that with specialized targeted audiences, or you could just simply boost content that you've created just for your social platforms. It also connects businesses directly to their target audiences. So it's a great way for brands in order to connect with people that are already aware of their brand and that love their brand and are brand advocates. And it's a great way to communicate information that way as well. And it's also an opportunity for businesses to directly measure success. Instagram and Facebook specifically are two platforms I work with every day. And it is awesome because you can sign up for these business accounts for free, and you can look at your KPIs daily, and they're up to date all the time. You can see how your followers have grown over the last 30 days or 7 days, or it's awesome because they have all these KPIs, click-through links or click-through rates, impressions, reach. All of these things are accessible, and you can measure them by the daily. You also have the ability to socially listen to industries on social media, which is a great tool to use, and also just be involved in the industry, whether it be through giveaways with other brands, or just following related brands and hearing directly from customers or people who have an affinity for your brand and interacting with those people daily, which I'll talk about a little bit in a second. You also have the opportunity to reach new audiences, which is awesome. And Manny, you talked a little bit about this in the reverse way, leading people to your social media from your blog, but you can also reach new audiences through social media by getting hashtag connected, using hashtags, tagging locations specifically for Instagram and Facebook is really a wonderful way to reach new audiences, and even using something called alt text. So a lot of people don't know about this alt text feature on Instagram and Facebook, but if you click more or advanced settings when you're posting on Instagram and Facebook, you can write alternative text, and it basically helps identify what the post is about or what the image is. And through the algorithm, it'll promote that image to people who have searched those words in those platforms. And finally, it directs users back to your blog, website, or your home plate, where you can really win those customers over, and you want to get them to be more familiar with your brand. So social media press releases. It's awesome. And Manny, again, I'm so glad you talked about the evolution of the press release, because now we're in this age of digital. Everyone is on digital. Everyone's always on their phone. So how does the press release play into that, and how have brands been utilizing social media to post their press releases? So what is the social media press release? I feel like when people say this, I'm like, what is that even? Like, let's just dive into it. It's an alternative form of a press release, and it essentially is just an expansion of a formal press release, kind of like Tom was talking about. So some brands use their traditional press release and they just tag a link to it, and then they do an additional image or video. But the thing that is really special about social media press release, which Tom again talked about, was using second person and just making it more personable and more easy to be consumed. And that's why what's so great about social media press releases is that they have video and images and things that are engaging, and things that influencers and other people of importance on social media are going to want to engage with and share. So it just makes it really more consumable for users on social media. And the evolution of the traditional medium is just so interesting because it really connects brands directly with their customers through this new kind of social media press release. And it is ever evolving again, because social media is ever evolving. Even within the last year with TikTok is like a huge brand that has, or not brand, but platform that has blown up. And I'm interested to see how brands use that even in addition to Instagram and Facebook, the more popular platforms, and the sharing of their press releases. And so here are some examples of social media press releases from brands. We have Patagonia here in the center. They just shared a video. This university on the side shared a link to their press release. Microsoft, on the other hand, just an image and a link as well to their press release. And just one announcement, kind of bold, just really short, because when you're targeting on or posting on social media, you kind of have just a split second to grab their attention. So it really has to be just like Shelly was saying with her subject lines. It's got to be right to the point. People just want to know what it's about, and they're going to keep scrolling. So you got to do anything you can do to catch their attention as soon as possible. So why use a social media press release instead of the alternative traditional sense of a release? Well, it can get up to 9 times as much views as a traditional press release. Because you're posting it directly. You have immense control over how much you promote it, how much money you put into it, how in which you engage in hashtags and in tagging locations and all those great resources that I was talking about before. And it targets the consumers directly. So brands have a direct control over who is seeing it, who of their target audiences is seeing it, and who they want to see it as well. Also, it has the ability to measure the success immediately. You are able to see who's liking it, who's sharing it, who mentioned it, what are they saying about it, and you can engage with those people as it's coming in real time. As well, you're able to see what people are saying in not directly shares or comments on your direct press release, but you're able to see people talk about it in offline platforms as well. So messaging, this is a huge part of just anything you do on social media. And if you have anything to take away from this, I hope you take away something from this portion, because this is really important in social media, and just some tips of the trade from what I have learned in my experience with social media and what is successful in posting in social media. So some tips: be consistent. When someone is scrolling on social media, they're going really fast. They're not stopping. People have a very, very low attention span on social media. So you're going to need to be consistent in look and feel of your content. If I'm scrolling on Instagram or if I'm scrolling on Facebook on my phone, because I think it's 90% of people use their phone to view Facebook, not their desktop. So if I'm scrolling on Facebook and I don't recognize the brand because it's not associated in color scheme or in a visual that is appealing, I'm just going to scroll right past it. But if I recognize your brand, let's say Nike, the swoosh, I recognize the swoosh immediately. I know exactly what it is. Same with Disney, the ears. I know exactly what it is immediately, or the Disney D. I know what it is without even needing to really look at an image. I can know at the split of a second. So it's really important to have a consistent look and feel with all of your content that you create and that you post about, so that people can recognize it immediately and know who this is without even having to really look into what you're saying. The other really important thing to be is aware. What's happening on social? Like, what is happening socially with with the apps themselves? There's so much change and constant additions to these applications. Instagram just added Reels. And if you don't know what Reels are, they're essentially these 30-second videos that are just these little snippets of people's lives, and they just quickly share information. And so you need to know what's happening and what's adapting on social. Also, what's trending currently that you could capitalize on. Something I love that happened on TikTok recently was someone went viral for just skateboarding and holding it. He was drinking cranberry juice. It was an Ocean Spray cranberry juice. He was just skateboarding, drinking his cranberry juice, and it just randomly went viral. He was playing Fleetwood Mac, just completely random video of this man just enjoying life. And it went viral, like 5 million views, and Ocean Spray capitalized on it. They sent a video of their CEO riding on a skateboard and drinking cranberry juice. It was great. And then Fleetwood Mac was able to also capitalize on it. So it's really important to be listening on social media and seeing what's happening and what are people enjoying and what could we use that's on social media to capitalize on. Also be sensitive to what's happening. Be aware of what's happening in our communities and what's happening in the United States right now. It's a crazy time we live in. I don't think any of us could have expected the last year to happen the way in which it did, but it did. And it's important to be sensitive to what's happening as well. It's also really important to be authentic, to be you. People don't so much care about, the aesthetics of things, or like, oh my goodness, like, is this brand professional enough? That's kind of not what we're seeing social media or even the world leaning towards. People want to see a personality behind a brand, and content, even more so now than ever, is favored for being authentic and raw and real. And so I always advise in places that you can be, just to be authentic and be yourself. And yeah, just stick with that. Be active. It's really important to post frequently. Manny, I believe you were talking about this as well. It's super important to post as frequently as possible. Each platform, it's different. Instagram is once a week is pretty frequent for Instagram. Facebook, again, once a week is probably pretty frequent enough, but it's important to be engaging as well. So you want to be not only posting frequently, but you want to be engaging with your followers. You want to be liking and sharing other industries' posts. One of my biggest tips or takeaways is every time I post, I try to go onto the hashtags that I'm going to tag in my post, and I go onto that hashtag and I go to the top maybe 20 posts, and I look for the posts that are maybe under 300 likes, and I go in and like and comment on those posts, because those people are going to see, oh, what's this brand that's liking and commenting on my post? Like, what are they? And then they're going to come and over to your page and see your recent post. And then they're going to want to engage with you as well, because you just engaged with them. Use hashtags. Use those hashtags and research those hashtags. What's really, really popular, or maybe too popular of a hashtag? Hashtag love, probably too popular to use, because there's going to be like 7 million posts on it. But if you use hashtag love is blank, maybe a little more less used, so your post will be more received towards the top of that hashtags page. And provoke engagement by asking questions. I think it's super important at the end of each post to ask your followers questions, get them engaged. If I'm posting about this water bottle, and I just say, man, I love this water bottle, this brand is my favorite brand, what's your favorite brand? People are more likely to engage with that than me just saying, I like this water bottle. There's nothing there to really engage with, but they always want to share their opinions as well. Followers do, and people just on social media. So if you ask those questions, you're going to get more of a response. And the more people comment on your post, and the more people that share and like your posts or save your posts on Instagram, the more likely it is to be boosted on the algorithms of these platforms. So what's next for messaging and social media? So it's kind of interesting. I think we did this order of our presentations pretty beautifully. But as we're going into this digital age, it's very interesting to see how just social media has become a huge play of the lives of others. And obviously I'm on these platforms daily. This is my job. But it's interesting to see how brands have utilized these platforms and how they've messaged and been able to create relationships with their target audiences through social media, essentially. And I see social media becoming it's not going to die down anytime soon. I think it's going to be around for a very long time. And I see more and more and more brands utilizing social media for sharing information, taking stances on social causes, and just utilizing them on a day-to-day basis. So that's where I see social media and messaging going in the future. But that's it.
Great. Thank you, Joy. Appreciate that. So, wow, you opened up a whole can of worms of questions for me because, I think one of the things that people say, the obviously social media, the trick is building an audience. And I, as somebody who spent a lot of time on a couple of platforms on social media, Twitter in particular, I've been able to build an audience, but it's taken 10 years and built, pretty good audience and had some success with it. But if you're just starting out in business and you have a small audience, well, I'll use the Chamber of Commerce webpage. I do the Twitter Chamber of Commerce webpage, 300 and some followers. I don't, it's not much of a place to put out anything with any kind of a following. So where do you send, how do you get data? Your tricks on engaging are cool, but where do you go to send your data out so it reaches beyond just your little pool of people? So if you're a brand, even if you're a brand and you're just getting started and you've only got a few thousand followers, how do you ramp it up to, 250,000 or whatever, those are the tricks.
Yeah, no, absolutely. When I was working at a startup called GTFO, it's vegan. We had maybe a few hundred followers when I began. I was a digital marketing manager, great cause, and they had a really great business model, and it was really needed in that specific industry. And something that we utilized a lot was working with other brands. It's so important to forget about competition in this and just realize that we're all kind of playing towards the same team. And you can really work with brands, especially if you have a product. If you have a product to give away, or you can invest in money for a giveaway to do with other brands, I would highly recommend it, because then you're not only reaching your followers, but you're also reaching their followers as well. And so a typical giveaway would be follow both of our brands, comment or tag 3 friends on this post, and then you get 3 per person that enters the giveaway. You get 3 new people that see your post. So it's really interesting, I think, and I think a lot of people miss out on this, on working with other brands, just because they're worried about competition. But I would really say working with other people in the industry is an awesome way to kind of build outside of your current target audience.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you're building on their success as well, too. I mean, everybody's piggybacking on this, because that makes a lot of sense. I was just going to share my story goes back before social media. And there was a publication in Orange County that was motivating to me, and it served, so I'm an audio production company, and this was a publication that went to video producers. It was called OCSD Film and Video News, and it was a monthly publication, and I even got an ad on the front page on one of the last of the publications, because it was such a good it was like it was my niche. It was like fantastic. And she would run stories every month on what's going on in the industry and what fun projects are going. And, you know, my industry is kind of, it's quasi entertainment, and it's interesting. So it's easier to get things published than if I was, say, you know, manufacturing widgets and I wanted to promote, oh, we have a new widget and how do I get the word out? Sure, I can get it out within the widget industry, you know, and this was my industry, it was a niche. So I would take the same press releases, like, you know, without CCing, I would send those out individually to other publications, and ended up, you know, some of the stories that I sent out ended up in national publications, and some of them ended up in, you know, other little niche areas. And it just, you know, funny how it just took one thing to sort of do, you know, a monthly press release, just getting in the habit of doing it and writing it and formatting it and sending that out. And, you know, other, you know, people that are in my field, I've said, you know, we're in a field that's quasi creative that people want to know about. And it's always kind of, if you can find that hook. So that was the other, somebody mentioned hooks. And, you know, so I want to, maybe that would be the first area I'd like to start. So what kind of hooks attract editors and attract, you know, eyeballs on social media? What is it that you have to do that provides a hook that's cool and new? Well, you talked about giveaways, Joy. That giveaways are always, I always look at giveaways. Oh, who's giving this away? What is it? What do I have to do? Where do I have to sign up? And I'll go to their website and type in my name and email. I don't care, you know, get on the mailing list, fine. I can always unfollow, unsubscribe later on. But if I got a chance to win something or a chance to get something free, I'm in on those. What are some other things?
People also are interested in news of their own local area. So if you use a hashtag of Cypress, California, right, people will find that through search engines. Or their hobby, if they are into raising corgis. That would be another way of bringing in new people. Always keep in mind the search engines and making it easy for prospective readers and friends and customers and clients to find you.
Boy, is that ever right. You know, when I type in Manny Pacheco, I got to worry about Manny Pacquiao. So I get it. That's why Forgotten Hollywood turned out to be a godsend. I can now use a different branding method. And you know, in my case, Hollywood is like Hawaii or Vegas. You talk about Hollywood, you talk about Vegas, you talk about Hawaii, it perks people up. You don't need to give away anything if you choose not to, because I'm lucky to have a brand. I mean, I guess it's a lot more problematic for those people who are into model trains or knitting, or you know, any number of things that are so niche that they only appeal to niche audiences, which is never a bad thing. And there's probably more in that audience than we would expect. But you know, if you have a broad enough audience without, as Joy put it, using love, which is just so universal that you're never gonna be that voice in the wild that's ever gonna be heard. But in my case, I was able to glob on to Hollywood, and there's so much area to cover in that Hollywood. I'll never run out of topics. And so the diversification of content has to consistently be interesting. So for example, I'll speak to book clubs about my books, the Forgotten Hollywood book series, and the individual actors. But if I'm invited by the Nurses Association, what does that have to do with Hollywood? Well, in some cases, I do have a couple of topics of actors who suffered disabilities. So then I can share health-related stories that would appeal to that audiences. And I have actually made a 10-year career of visiting the Cypress Chamber of Commerce and other chambers of commerce, and of course, Rotaries. I've gone to over 100 Rotaries talking about some of these actors who, some of them actually belong to the Rotary Club. I can think of one, Arthur Lake, who played Dagwood Bumstead in the Blondie series. He was a Rotarian, and they always served lunch at the Rotaries in his honor of the Dagwood sandwich, in his honor, those big sandwiches with the olive on top. Well, after he stopped visiting, they kept serving those Rotary Club sandwiches, and eventually people who were part of Rotary started serving them if they were restaurateurs, but they dropped the term Rotary, and it became the most popular sandwich in the United States, the club sandwich, Rotary Club sandwich, all because of an actor named Arthur Lake. Well, I can't tell that story with the Nurses, but I surely can tell that story when I'm visiting a Rotary Club. So it's targeting your audience with interesting content, and that content should be able to sell itself. And at the very least, you should be able to sell yourself, or what's the point?
Well, one of the things that, to Manny's, what Manny was talking about, Manny's actually kind of expanded that then. So if he's talking with Chamber of Commerce, he'll find some business related topics that still lead back to actors and Hollywood. So maybe thinking outside the box and not trying to market necessarily to your specific niche, but to other niches and making the niche broader. I've sent some stuff to OC Breeze, and even though it's only West Orange County, it's the audience is, hundreds of thousands. She gets hundreds of thousands of hits each month. And so to be in any kind of publication that links back to your website or links back to your event or whatever, is still pretty cool. So, and I say start local with anything, to try to find the local publications, whether they're print or online or whatever, and then build out from there. And
Karaoke Scene Magazine, Bingo Bugle, whatever.
Yes. When you talk about, model trains and knitting, believe me, there are probably hundreds, if not thousands, of model train sites, publications, interest groups, whatever. And it's just a matter of finding where they are. That's the trick.
I think that there's a real great opportunity for a part 2 of Joy's presentation where she actually talks about crafting the messaging that goes into the social media posts. I know that we spent as writers at Extron, we spend a lot of time thinking about the best way to engage somebody to read a post, whether it's in LinkedIn or Twitter. And then, do you start off with a question? Sometimes that works. Do you include an exclamation point in it someplace? Where's the call to action? Where's the call to action go? And trying to put a lot of thought into what goes into 240 characters, and then maybe less than that if there's hashtags involved or other links and things like that. So that's a whole other art into itself. I think that it's a very interesting category, and that dives back into what Manny was talking about as far as search engine optimization and stuff goes too. So it's a very deep dive, but it's fun stuff.
Cool. Anything else to add? We're not getting a lot of questions. What is that alt text? Oh, within the Instagram thing, it was the alt text thing. So is that found under a more category?
Yeah, let me see if I can pull it up for you right now. It's under, so if you're posting on, let's say just on Instagram, I'll just post this random photo.
The funny thing about Instagram as a tool is that, you can't put a link in Instagram. You have to go and change your link in your bio if you're going to post something about an event or post something about whatever, and you're constantly changing that link to get people to drive them to a particular specific site, which is the good thing about Twitter and some of the other ones is that you can just stick those links right in there along with the hashtags and along with references to other people that helped participate in, finding that, which you hope that then they will also promote on their social media,
Yeah, absolutely. So just for visually, if you're on Instagram, so this is Instagram, and if we're posting a photo, so you've got this photo of a couch, if you scroll to the bottom, there's an advanced settings button. It's really small. It's, let's see if I can get it on there. There it is. So you can click the advanced setting, and then it will have an option right here at the bottom, right alt text. So essentially this is utilized for people with disabilities. So someone who's visually impaired that can't, necessarily see these images, and they have them read out loud to them on their phones. However, the algorithm also uses this to identify what is in the photo, because obviously computers don't necessarily see images the same way we do. So it's a really great tool, and I highly recommend you start utilizing it. And anytime you post you can do it on Facebook as well. So
cool.
Yeah, very interesting.
Check it out. Yeah, exciting. Shelley, how many hits do you get? Because you've talked about that several times.
Well, according to our load balancing software, Cloudflare, we get over 200,000 unique visitors every month. That's unique visitors, doesn't tell you how many returning visitors. So since we get people who show up every day, I would say that we have quite a big following, and it's lumpy. We have a huge chunk locally, of course, but we also have a huge chunk, or a large chunk down in San Diego for our, I have no idea why, and another chunk in the San Francisco, Sacramento area. And I attribute that to the hardworking staffers of the Politicos up there. And then scattered across the country. Most of our readership is in the United States.
But the market area that you serve is really just West Orange County, including a little bit of East Long Beach and Buena Park and
Yes.
Cypress, Los Alamitos, Rossmore, Seal Beach, and it's expanding a little bit. And it's interesting because actually it turns out to be a pretty big market area and can be pretty good. And also Shelley puts out a daily newsletter of sort of the top stories that are being put out that particular day, which
Yes.
and a lot of people subscribe to get that in their inbox. So
Yes.
that's another cool hook.
The daily overnight news
Not to-
summary goes
Not
out.
just to rely on people to go to your site, but to put out a daily newsletter that sort of kind of encourages people, if there's something they want to see the whole thing, is to go look at, the click on the website then too.
Mhm.
So it's all driving people. So it's all about driving people, to
Get them to click on the ads.
Yes. That's the important thing. And then the blogs, Manny's got a very active blog, and the blog, is constantly growing, and that drives people to, what is it that this Manny does? Well, he publishes books, and then they go and look, well, what are the books? And you just never know where that's going to connect. So,
It's funny, in 2009, it was my nephew. At the time, he was 21. And he says, you need to have an active blog if you're going to be successful as an author. And I said, what's a blog? I had no idea. I mean, I'm an older guy. I'm thinking a monster movie, beware of the blog. Well, 2,100 blogs later, because he asked me to be active. So I write, about anywhere between 11 and 20 blogs a month. And I have over 2,100 blogs. Now my sister gets involved and she decides to read every single blog, pick out 125 of the best blogs I've written over the 10-year period, a capsule of what our early part of our decade, of our century is, so that as a historian, we can capture what was going on between those early years of the 21st century. And so we turned it into a book. It'll be out probably next year, and we're calling it Forgotten Hollywood, Beware of the Blog.
That's good. That's very good. Also, anytime a celebrity dies, Manny has almost one of the first listings up with a nice bio and always a great little background piece. I'm constantly sharing those because it's a great way. Again, I'm in a quasi entertainment industry, so it's like a great way to share a little piece of entertainment and also give a plug to Manny. So the website's forgottenhollywood.com, correct?
Right. And my books are the Forgotten Hollywood book series. Of course, they're available on Amazon. And why not use a Zoom meeting, a webinar to, again, send out that press release, right?
There you go. Exactly. A verbal press release using audio. What else? What else have we left out?
How about Go Bruins?
There you go.
Hey, fight on.
I like the Trojans as well, so that's good.
Okay.
This is good.
For marketing, generally, I'm working on something for the Chamber of Commerce, but I'll mention it here. Consider direct mail. With everybody still spending so much time at home, you go out and check your mailbox, hoping that somebody has sent you something. Whereas you sit down to read your email, and for me especially, right, it's a chore, right? You go out to the mailbox, oh look, somebody has sent me something, yay, it's the air conditioner guy. What kind of special does he have today? Consider doing direct mail for your targeted audience, because it is so light and sparse these days that almost everything stands out.
Yeah, and surprisingly, a postcard mailing is something simple, or a handwritten postcard. Mailing is something simple from a marketing standpoint. Another marketing tool that is very underutilized, but especially people that work in voiceover or audio, I know we have a lot of voiceover followers, is cold calling. And calling businesses, very few people actually still call. I mean, yes, social media is good and it's important to work the social media. Press release is good. It's important to send those out. But from a marketing standpoint, exactly what Shelley says, the traditional ones are so gone by the wayside that when you use them, it's kind of a surprise, and that's the key.
I'm a huge fan of a cold call and a old-fashioned written letter. So I couldn't agree more. I think thank you notes and just a call on the phone are so overlooked sometimes because we're always on our phones and we always,
They have
email. And I think, I couldn't agree more.
they pay off. They really do. And they have a lot of impact. It's like, wow, I got a thank you note, or I got a thank you gift or a gift card or something like that. If you've given somebody a big contract, so.
I talked to you about this a few weeks ago, Tim, when I was talking about cold calling and mentioned, and you said you thought it was refreshing. And then I went ahead and did a bunch of them and created a whole map of the United States with production companies in small to medium-sized markets and started calling them at certain times of the day that are supposed to be the best times of the day to call them. And sure enough, I had people say, really, a call? This is really cool. Hang on a second. And then, and like you said, chances are the person that answers the phone is going to be the person that deals with hiring voiceover people. So,
and the service you're selling is your voice, and what better opportunity for them to hear your voice, right?
I had several people just like, oh, I could tell you're a voiceover artist. I'm like, really? I didn't realize I can.
Oh,
hear
yes,
myself,
tone
but
of voice. You and Tim both, and Manny.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it turned out that cold calling certainly works really well. And I think, as Joy mentioned, just a handwritten letter, I think you move away from email, as Shelley, I'm sure will tout, it just gives so many emails. But do something different. These are all job interviews. These are all ways of getting yourself out there and showing what you can do with your business, and in novel, kind ways of doing things tend to pay off.
Yeah, communication skills are getting lost by the wayside, and you have a distinct advantage if you know how to communicate verbally that complements your way of communicating with the written word through email or through social media delivery, content delivery. If you can communicate in person, I think you seal the deal. I agree with Tom on that.
There you go. So, but still a press for a specific, something that's new that's happening, or something that's different, or a success. You've had a company-wide success. For instance, there was one today, somebody that I know that's a voiceover person has a national program that's going to be on Saturday. That's definitely press release worthy because it's above and beyond what their day-to-day activity is. And just be, watch for me on this national program on Saturday about XYZ, that's a worthy hook. So. Cool. Well, thank you all for participating. anything we've left off that you want to, final thoughts that you want to share?
Well, I just want to encourage all the local groups and businesses and such to not be shy about sending email to editor@oc-breeze.com, either inquiries or news, but please make that subject line stand out from all those that I receive that just say press release or news release. That's editor@oc-breeze.com. We want to get the word out about your company or your group or your city news.
Cool. Any other final thoughts?
Go check out that Forgotten Hollywood book series from Manny.
There you go.
And I was also going to thank you, Tom.
Yeah.
I was also going to mention that you can catch me each Sunday from 11 to 5. And if you need to get from point A to point B, that's what I'm here for, is to provide the traffic for you too, and keep you out of it and getting to your destination. So that's on KNX 1070 AM.
In Los Angeles. We do have an international audience
That's
from
true.
around the country.
In Southern California. Yeah.
There you go.
And I want to do a shout out for a thing that Tom Jordan put in the comment, the chat box, hashtagify.me. I'm going to check it out. I didn't know it existed.
Tell you the relevance of the hashtag, so that you're not just putting hashtags in there that are that you think sound good, but they have no real social media relevance. So it's a tool.
Hashtagify.me. Cool. All right, we'll check it out. All right, everybody. Well, thanks again for being here, and we'll look for you on our next webinar or our networking breakfast. We have a great networking breakfast for the Cypress Chamber people. If you're interested, it's actually next Tuesday. And we have two experts who are going to give us an update on homelessness in Orange County and in West Orange County, and how that, what they're doing to work on that and help things out. So with that, we'll thank you all for attending, and I'm going to end the recording.
Thank you.
Thanks.